Hallo
Hello
zusammen.
everyone.
Heute möchte
Today
ich
I'm
euch
going to
zeigen, wie
show
man
you
in
how
der
to do a
Dragon Shade
detailed
App eine
analysis
genaue
in the
Analyse
Dragon
durchführt,
Shade app and what
worauf es
matters.
ankommt.
Here we
Los
go.
geht's.
At the beginning, we proceed exactly as I have already explained in the instruction video. It is important that you select the appropriate library after selecting Color Analysis. In this case, we select the E-Max Serum. I will explain the basic principle of the procedure here so that it is suitable and the same for all ceramic systems. We create a new project. Open the photo that we want to analyze. Since we took the photo here with a dragon shade, we select the dragon shade gray card. Now we click on the gray area in the middle of the photo and then on Continue. Next, we determine which area, top or bottom, is the gum of the tooth we want to analyze. Then we cut out the tooth. Now let's identify 4 areas that we want to analyze. Preferably not only on the vertical level, so not just from top to bottom, but we select areas that are visually most different from each other. If you are dissatisfied with an area or want to analyze other areas, you can use the previously selected areas, delete and set new ones. The program selects the best possible tooth shade from the library for each area. Each selected area of the tooth is shown in the rectangle on the left, and the suggested pattern from the library is shown on the right. It is quite possible that if we move an area only slightly, a completely different tooth color will be suggested to us. This tooth is very special because it has many colors and brightness values. You notice this in particular when you move the suggested tooth color as a circle in one of the selected areas. First, I would always determine the lightest area and its color. This is usually this area of the tooth. We already see a difference in hue here. There may also be a difference in brightness, and the difference may also be a little larger. Nevertheless, this is the best option in relation to the standard layering. If we look at where the suggested area of the template for this area is, we see that the area is at a similar level as our tooth being analyzed. The layer thickness of the cutting edge on the sample tooth is 0.5 millimeters at this point. This may be different for the analyzed tooth. It just means that the saturation, hue, and lightness values are similar. If that is enough and the analysis gives us enough information to understand in which direction we need to move to get the color even better than the suggested pattern, then the analysis is done. Very experienced colleagues sometimes just need a good photo. But even a professional gets additional security. He knows, for example, if the area corresponds more closely to the brightness of A1, what he has to do to achieve this tone as well. When analyzing a little more closely, there are several ways to do it. You can mix up to 3 patterns in each area until you are satisfied with the desired result. In this way, you can also achieve a good result, but with the transparency of the tooth, and especially with constantly changing light, there can be very large differences in brightness and tone. Therefore, in my opinion, it is very important that you first analyze the tooth that you want to build up and understand how it is structured. And those would be 4 important points, 4 important questions that I ask myself in the analysis. 1. How is dentin structured? 2. How thick is the cutting edge? 3. How transparent is the cutting edge? 4. What color is the edge? To recognize it better, I uploaded 3 pictures that I took in different lighting conditions. To 1. How is dentin structured? That means how is it going? Where is it possibly becoming more transparent? To 2/3, how thick is the cutting edge? And how transparent is the cutting edge? Being able to imagine this is very important because it plays a big role when analyzing and later when layering. To 4. What is the color of the cutting edge? Being able to assess whether the incisal has one shade or another is of great benefit, as it allows you to be more precise about what kind of dentin needs to be layered underneath. Now, for further analysis or to determine which ceramic mixture can be used to achieve the best possible result, I would leave the first point with the suggested A1 sample as it is, because I don't see that the tooth is particularly opaque or transparent. The small deviation is not important in this case, because if the point is slightly displaced, it can look very different, and because this area is particularly influenced by the adjacent gums. The second area of the patient's tooth appears to be a little warmer, more orange here. I would also say that I would like to make the cutting area slightly thicker than 0.5 millimeters thick. Therefore, I would make the following changes here. Since I would like to layer the incisal slightly thicker than the suggested incisal layer thickness, and also want to go a bit orange, I first have to lighten the dentin, because otherwise the brightness value would be reduced due to the thicker and warmer cutting edge. I leave the suggested pattern A1 for now, and add a lighter pattern first, e.g. BL2. It is very important that you only add and blend areas that have the same incisal layer thickness. Since the orange is not enough for me here, I add BL2 that has been overlaid with CTO. When adding the patterns, they are always mixed together in equal parts first. You then, of course, have the opportunity to do the mixing yourself. To do this, click on the percentage and move the circle that represents the tooth color of the patient's tooth. And so I have already reached a very good agreement. Do not try to reach the maximum percentage of agreement at this point. At this point, ask yourself the 4 questions again. 1. How is dentin structured? 2. How thick is the cutting edge? 3. How transparent is the cutting edge? 4. What color is the edge? This is very important now. E.g., you achieve more than 99% agreement here, where dentin A1 is mixed in at 40%. But also at this point where pure BL dentin 2 would be used. What's the difference? And in which case would I choose one or the other? So, since I think that the edge is more transparent here and the heat also radiates more from it, I decide to work with pure BL2 dentin in this case. Of course, more of the CTO is mixed in here. However, if you feel that the heat is coming from within and the incisal is a bit more compact, you can achieve a similar result by adding dentin A1 and using less of CTO in the incisal mix. The mixtures under the respective layers can be recognized better in the representation of the layer schemes. Dentin now consists of several dentins as well as the opaque dentin. And the cutting edge no longer consists of 2 but 3 masses. I would make the suggested third area slightly redder, more orange, but above all increase the cutting strength from 0.5 to 0.7. Here I will stay with B1 for the time being and, as I said, only correct the cutting thickness. It is clear that this makes me lose brightness, so I add BL3 to increase the brightness again. That looks pretty good, but I'm still missing red, orange. Since the brightness is sufficient here, I add a pattern of B-tone, which consists only of power dentin and has been overlaid with CTOP. Now you see that you get a good result by mixing. When there are so many different shades next to each other, as is the case with this tooth, you can easily layer them with higher contrast. This means that, for example, this narrow area can be made stronger in terms of color saturation and brightness, because there are no clear boundaries when it comes to layering. A lighter area affects a rather darker one and vice versa. So to speak, these neutralize each other a bit. So I would always emphasize the small but different areas more strongly than how I analyze them here. E.g., how do they represent warm spots inside, or even represent them through the internal painting? Now we come to the last and most difficult area. Towards the cutting edge, where the cutting edge is thickest and the tooth becomes more translucent, you cannot really tell 100% what the core is made of, which DOD, and which cutting edge. The program suggests a C1 color with an incisal thickness of 0.5. Since this program, like any other, cannot judge how transparent and how thick the dentin and the incisal are, it suggests us the best possible shade. Yes, and as you can see, it doesn't even fit that badly, only that I'm missing a bit of red. Taking this circle from C1 and moving it, you understand that this tone and brightness goes really well with BLA1 in the cutting area as well as the core of C1. The only thing missing is depth and transparency. I'm going to try an A1 first. That means I first try to get lighter from the inside, then with a thicker and, as I would say here, more transparent incisal to give the tooth depth and shade. When I use pure standard A1, I still lack transparency and the necessary hue. So I add an A1 where dentine would be overlaid with pure OE1, transparent opal incisal. The tooth becomes more transparent and warmer purple due to the opal effect. But it's not enough. So I add another A1 pattern overlaid with pure CTOP. Now I see that even with A1 I can't get the desired shade. Check for black and white. The brightness value has been reached, but we are still a long way from the desired hue. So I replace the A1 with BL3, which I also used for the most part in the third area. Why do I go from A1 to BL3 and not maybe achieve the tone by painting internally? Of course, that would also be a solution, and not only in this case. In the case of a smaller and more extensive color deviation, it is easier to achieve the right color and brightness value by layering and then shaping. By changing from A1 to BL3, I naturally take the warm tone out of the low end, but by layering opal mass I get a greater depth effect and a more reddish purple hue. Because of this and the transparency when layering with the opal mass, I achieve a less orange and more reddish violet hue. Compared to internal painting, in this case I can adjust the color tone more easily by reducing the cutting thickness. Of course, experience plays a major role everywhere. When replacing or laying out the patterns to be mixed, please ensure that you always select them from the same cutting thickness range. Now let's adjust the color by blending. I am very satisfied with the result and I am now finished with the analysis. In the next window, I can look at the layer scheme and save the project. If you want to add something to the layer scheme manually, you can save it as an image and print it out. Here you can display layer by layer. Below and in the right part of the image, all the masses required for the layering are listed. The big advantage is that you don't have to worry about which masses you need now, which may appear twice or 3 times in the layer scheme. All you have to do is pull out the listed masses and then mix in point by point. The extent of the masses depends, of course, on the tooth color of the tooth to be analyzed, on your analysis, what you see in the tooth, and how far you want to go with the analysis, which you consider sufficient. And since I'm often asked, what do you do when you don't have enough space? I wanted to show you here how you can still achieve a good result. We take a step back and do not exchange the colors for the 4th point, but only the layer thickness of the cutting edge. And let's go first down to 0.7. You see what happens. With BL3, we will not achieve the necessary color and brightness value here. We lack depth and absorbing masses here, as well as red, violet. So now I swap the first BL3 pattern for a D color pattern. I exchange the second BL3 pattern for an A1 pattern, but exactly the same as the previous pattern has been overlaid with OE1. I exchange the third BL3 sample for an A1 sample overlaid with OEV. Now I'm trying to get closer to the tone and brightness value again by mixing. I think that looks very good too. But what do you do when you have even less space available? Basically the same. We go from 0.7 millimeters in sisal layer thickness to 0.5 millimeters. Here, it should be clear to everyone that if we can't get more than 0.5 millimeters thick with the edge, then illusions must be created. That means it has to be made darker from below, from the core, and you should get as close as possible to the necessary color and brightness value through the framework, through the internal staining, and through the dentin layering. But it should still be lighter than the desired result. And it is clear, here we also lack depth, absorption, and red-purple hue. I use a D3 pattern instead of a D2 pattern. I replace both A1 patterns once with D3 patterns and once with D2 patterns. D3 pattern is overlaid with pure OE1 ground and D2 pattern is overlaid with an OEV mass. I try to get closer to the tone and brightness value again by mixing. If it doesn't quite work out, I would exchange the D2 for a D3. But it fits quite well and I would leave it at the result and then start layering. At this point, I wish you a lot of fun and enjoy analyzing and layering later. Until then, bye.